first, I'd like to express my pleasure to have you. I think, am I audible enough? Can you hear me? Do I need to shout? Okay. Yeah, I will just speak loud.
Okay.
My name is Walid, as I was introduced, and my topic today is about latest trends in teachers' competence, measuring where you are. At the very beginning, we will quickly have an overview of the session. So, at the first part, we're going to have a look. You can't hear me? Okay. Is it better? Okay?
Yes.
You hear me?
Yeah.
So at the very beginning, we are going to start with definition of teachers' competences. We are going to see what are the different definitions of teachers' competences and how this definition evolved over the years. How was it at the beginning and where is it now? Okay. The next part is the importance of that topic. Why I have already selected this topic and why do we think that teachers' competences are important and they can play an important part in the educational process and the success or the achievement of our students. The next part is the different classification and types of competences. What are the competences? Okay, how have they been classified by different writers, books, and researchers? Which competences are the most effective for you as a teacher? Again, based on research. How to measure where you are? We are going to provide some tools to tell you as a teacher how can you measure your competence. You need to know where you are and what is the next step, where you should be next year. And then we're going to open a part for questions. At the very beginning, this is the definition of competence that came up in 1974. The definition says that teachers' competences, our competence is the ability to bring about the outcomes desired of a teacher in a certified teaching position. So the main focus at that time was on the ability. They were looking at the teacher as, the teacher's competence as an ability to deliver teaching process, okay? But this definition, focusing only on the ability, does not reflect everything that we require in a teacher. And that was the trend at that time in 1974. Later on, many other aspects were added. If we look at this thinking only of the ability, we actually ignore the fact that teachers need knowledge, not just ability. Okay, and there are, as we all know, different types of knowledge. We have knowledge of the content, knowledge of the language, we have knowledge of pedagogical knowledge, and we also have content pedagogical knowledge, which is a mixture, or the way, how can we deliver the content using the pedagogy or using the methodology that we have studied before. So as we see here that this definition actually ignores the knowledge, it only focuses on the ability. That's why at that time we could see, if you have been working, for example, in an international institution where you can find teachers from different parts of the world, you can mainly find that the focus or the most important teachers at that time were native speakers of the language. They selected native speakers only because they think that they are able to speak the language fluently and they can deliver teaching process and they can make our students successful. But that's not the case, as we all teachers and we all know that only having the ability to use the language or even to deliver the message doesn't mean that you're a qualified teacher. You also need the knowledge. You also need the pedagogical knowledge. And this is what happens in the next definition. In 1998, another definition came out and tried to combine both the skills and the knowledge. As you can see here, teachers' competence is the knowledge and skills teachers need to enhance, improve, and explore their teaching practice. So here we have a mixture of both the knowledge and the practice. Okay, again, another important aspect is not mentioned here, which is behavior. Teachers are not only having knowledge and the ability to deliver the knowledge, but they also serve as models for their learners, which is reflected in the next definition that came out in 2012. In 2012, the definition says that teachers' competence is a combination of three different aspects: knowledge, skills, and behavior. Okay? So this is how it started, and this is where it is now. And as you can see that there is a change in the meaning of a teacher's competence over the years. And now we are going to have a look at this. Why do we think that teacher's competence is an important part? Why do you think it's an important part of the learning and teaching process? Can you answer this question? Why do we actually focus on teachers' competence? Why do you think it's really important? Do you think that the teaching and the teaching methodology is more important than the other facilities that an education institute can provide? Things like, for example, internet services, curriculum, assessment, all the other aspects that are there, that part of the educational process. So do you think that they are more important than the teacher, or do you think that the teacher is still the most influential part? The teacher. You may have all the tools necessary to deliver the teaching, okay, but still, the teacher is still the most important part and the most influential.
Simply because he is the medium.
Yeah, he's actually the medium. He is the person who delivered the message. Okay, Bo in 2003 says, all factors under the control of a school, regardless of these tools are, or these factors are, teachers and teaching methodology have the most powerful influence on student success. Okay, so now we are going to have a look at what are these competences. What are the teachers' competences? They actually have been defined, or they have been classified by researchers and writers, and they were given different types. Let's have a look at the first one. Bloom gave this classification in 2003. He divided teachers' competences into three. The first one is emotional. Can you tell me what does he mean by emotional competence? What is emotional competence? Can anybody answer? What does he mean by emotional competence?
I think the ability to sympathize with your students.
Okay, yeah. To sympathize with learners. Yeah. Stability. Okay, what do you mean by stability?
It is not great.
Okay.
It's the ability to build an emotional rapport between him and his...
building a good rapport between the teacher and the students. Only between the teacher and students, or between the teacher and colleagues and
stakeholders.
It's actually emotional competences actually mean that the teacher is able to have the ability to understand, to process, and to respond to students' needs. And then we have the cognitive. What does he mean by cognitive competence?
Knowledge.
Knowledge, yes.
Skills.
So when we talk about cognitive, where does it refer to? It refers to
mental
skills, right? Okay, so can you give me an example of mental skills? Things like decision making,
creative thinking,
creativity, problem solving. Okay, so these are all parts of the cognitive competence. And then we have the practical part, which is, what does he mean? What do you think Bloom means by practical? Yes, classroom management could be part of that. That teaching practice, use of methodology, knowledge and use of methodology, and
implementation of all these things.
Yes, it's actually the practice, or what we call it, the application of the knowledge within the classroom atmosphere. Okay, another classification was given in 2006. It divided teachers' competences into two other different types. The first one is called characteristic, and the other one is scientific. By characteristic, they mean rapport with the students, communication method, again, as we mentioned earlier, communication with students, with other colleagues, with administration, and even with parents. Classroom management. Can you tell me some of the most important aspects that we need to consider in classroom management? What are the most challenges that you usually have in your classroom regarding classroom management? Yes?
Giving instructions.
Instructions, clear instructions, I would say.
Engaging in peer and group and pair work.
Yeah, pairing, designing pairing group work activities for the learners. Time management.
Yes, monitoring students while they're working in pairs and group. Yeah.
Planning. Motivation could be part of that.
Different levels of ability.
Yeah, different levels of ability. What do we call this? When we have different students, and we design specific activities for this.
Differentiated activities.
Yes, exactly. So we have scientific, like the first one is awareness of psychology, and we have two different types of psychology here. Psychology of teaching and social psychology. So what psychology of teaching? What does he mean by this? Psychology of teaching.
Pedagogy.
Pedagogy, yeah, things related to pedagogy, yes.
Using
How do we
effective
believe?
language. Using effective language.
Yes. How do we believe that our students actually learn? Have you heard about, what do we call it, brain-based learning?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So sometimes you design the activity according to students, abilities to learn. Okay. And social competence or social psychology, what it means?
A social setting, a normal society, community setting.
Yeah. Actually, the student's ability to be part of the community, be part of a group within the classroom. Okay. And then teaching methodology. I think this is clear. Knowledge of the theories and knowledge of latest approaches in teaching, and then subject knowledge, which is knowledge of the subject, the content, exactly. Okay, another classification also was given in 2010 that divided teachers' competences into two different types, personal and vocational. By personal, they mean mental abilities, which were defined earlier as cognitive, okay, and values. This is something new that was added in this research. They added values as a personal competence for teachers, okay. By vocational, they mean general knowledge of the word. It's not just knowledge of the content, it's general knowledge of the word, general knowledge of the student's culture and the culture of the language as well. Vocational knowledge, which is related to pedagogy, related to teaching, communication skills, as we mentioned earlier, communication with all those concerned in the educational process. Another classification divided them into general and specialized. By general, they mean learning psychology, awareness of the teaching and learning process, class management, teaching methods, and evaluation. By specialized, they mean content knowledge, organizing and delivering this content, okay, giving feedback and assessment. I mean, if you look at the first part here, they said something about evaluation, and here they say something about assessment. Can you differentiate between that? What's the difference between evaluation and assessment?
So
Can anybody?
that's a judgmental.
Which one is more judgmental? Which is more subjective? Yes, it's actually the evaluation.
Assessment is more broad than the evaluation.
Exactly.
It
So
could be for evaluation purposes or for learning purposes.
exactly. So when you assess, you need to have criteria, specific criteria to assess students' outcomes. But when you evaluate, you make your own judgments about students' learning. You might say, as a teacher, you might say that this student is capable of doing this. I think that this student is one of the best students. But if another teacher comes, he might not think the same, because this is evaluation. This is subjective evaluation, right? But when assessment, you have a standardized test that measures all students' abilities through one specific scale. Okay, this is one of the most, I would say, comprehensive classification of teachers' competence. The first one is communication competence, communicating, as we mentioned earlier, with all participants, knowledge of the curriculum, how it is designed, how it's supposed to be delivered. Okay, the next is social and cultural knowledge, knowledge of the society, knowledge of the culture of students, and knowledge of the culture of the language as well, that the language comes from. And of course, you need to differentiate also, or to know the difference between the culture of the language and the student, because it sometimes affects the student's performance when you give them some ideas of things that they are not really aware of. Okay, and then this is something new, environmental. Have you ever tried to think of your competence as a teacher, your environmental competence as a teacher? Have you ever tried to raise students' awareness related to the environment?
You're doing research on I've done research on this and environmental awareness of the students, and how can we relate this to the English language teaching.
So what do you think could be done to
of course,
to support the students?
Of course, since we live in this world and all of us live here in this world, so it's our responsibility to protect our environment.
Yeah.
So why don't we use English to protect our environment? For example, using reading texts about global warming, about air pollution,
Deforestation,
yes,
pollution.
deforestation and so on.
Celebrate Earth Day every year.
Earth Day, yeah, and some
Part of
schools,
the
yeah, they
English
celebrate
project,
these
yeah,
things.
English
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Okay. So field. Okay. What do you think he means by field competence? Things related to the language. Yes. Okay. So I think we attended a plenary. Everybody attended a plenary yesterday with David Crystal. He was talking about what's up, what's new in English language, right? So when he gave some really interesting insights. Information communication technology. This has also become a very important aspect of teachers' competence. Now, teachers are all required to be able to use technology in their classrooms because the students are actually using this in their daily life. Okay, and we need to, use this to, for the benefit of our learners. Lifelong competence could be things like, commitment,
Continuous learning.
continuous learning, professional development, exactly. Learning how to learn. You're not actually teaching the students the language, you might also provide them with the means of how to learn. Okay, so they can become independent or autonomous learners later. Research. Yesterday I attended a workshop with Simon Berg. It was about research action or action research, if you remember. It was very interesting also. And now teachers are also required to be able to research, to conduct research in their classrooms. Not only to make judgments or to make new theories, but to solve problems that they have in their classrooms and to improve their practice. Okay? Emotional, which is again things related to student and teacher relationship.
Day unexpectabilities,
Yes.
problems,
Sure.
shortcomings.
Okay, so I want you to have a look at all these different competences and think of yourself. Which ones do you think you master? And which one do you think you still lack an area or something? Can you just quickly raise your hand and say, I lack this, I need to know more about this? All of them you lack. Or you master. You lack them all. IT. Curriculum.
Changing.
So, research. Yeah, I can see
Yes,
that teachers
research.
are actually very busy trying to deliver the contents that they have and they forget about the problems that their students have. So they might need to conduct some research in their classroom. Any other ideas?
Yeah, I think lifelong skills.
Lifelong skills, yes. Teaching
We need to
how
pay attention to
teach.
this, yes.
Yeah.
Environmental.
Again?
Environmental.
Environmental, yeah. This part is completely forgotten in our classroom. So we might need to think where we are and where we need to go further in the next year or the next years. Of course, in each of these competences, you might be perfect in 1 or 2 or 3 or even 6. They're actually 9. But still, you need to develop in the others, okay? Then, in some research, they conducted a questionnaire and they tried to measure where or what are the most effective teachers' competences. There were things like familiarity with different thinking skills and knowing how to apply them in your classroom. Thinking skills, things like decision making, quick thinking, critical thinking. These skills, they need you as a teacher, you need to master and you need to be able to deliver to your learners. New learning and teaching methodology. What are the latest trends? What's new in the field? And how can I use it in my class? How could it be useful to my learners? Class management, of course, this is one of the major issues that many teachers or some teachers may have. Okay, ICT, which is missing in some people. So you might need to work on this. Research skills and evaluation. Okay, knowing where your students are, what they lack, what you need to work on. Another research that was conducted in 2011, they believe that instructional delivery is one of the most important, learning how to teach, class management, formative, not summative assessment. Why? Why do you think they only selected formative, not summative?
Because formative assessment is for learning. So really it enhances the practice of teacher while teaching and students while learning.
Well, and actually, who designed the formative?
Yeah,
It's the
actually the
teacher.
formative
But who designed the summative? Usually, sometimes, if you work in a school, what? I still have 10 minutes. Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, formative assessment. So, because teachers, yes, come on.
Formative assessment is designed by teachers.
Yeah, it actually helps teacher. It's designed by teacher throughout the academic year to see where your what are your students' needs and how to work on this or improve it. But summative is usually, if you work in a school, is designed by the administration.
CTU.
CTU and all that. Personal competences, things like soft skills, as we mentioned earlier, things like communication, flexibility, interaction. So they believe that these are the most important. Of course, that from research to research, all these different types of research were based on questionnaires that they were delivered to teachers, and they selected what they believe is the most important. This is a very interesting research about teachers' belief about their own performance in the classroom, their pedagogical performance. This research was done in where? In 2000. Yes, it was done in Europe on novice teachers, asking teachers about their own performance. The school has designed the criteria for teachers' evaluation, and they gave teachers this evaluation to do self-assessment. What happens is that most teachers over-evaluated themselves. They even give themselves above average, or good, or excellent. Yeah, they always believe that they are better than what actually they are. Okay?
Why not?
I mean, it could be confidence, it's good, but again, it might have some, areas where you need to work on, and then because of this overconfidence, you might think, no, I don't need to. I am the best one in this area. Okay, but the results actually showed this. When they were observant, this was the result. Only 14% of those teachers were actually qualified, or they got they showed good performance according to the same criteria. And 42 of these teachers performed average, and 44 were below average. And they need to work in so many areas. So what we believe is not always the case about our performance. We might believe that we know something, but in fact, yes?
It's also what is the design of
it depends on the criteria of the school. That was designed according to the evaluation rubric or criteria that was set by this school. But it depends. It depends on the institution where you work in. If they have different evaluation criteria, you might need to work on that, because I think this is how you are going to be evaluated by the end of the year. Okay, so measuring where you are. I'm going to provide now some tools that may help you as a teacher to see where you are, okay, and what is the next step. Here, this is the European Profiling Grid, or the EPG. It's an instrument that describes the competence of language teachers and spreads them into tabular forms, spanning 6 phases of development. So they were like phase 1, but phase 1 was divided into 1.1 and 1.2, and then phase 2, which is divided into 2.1, 2.2, as we can see here. Let's have a look at the example. This is an example of the e-profiling grid. As you can see here, this is the first phase, second phase, and third phase, and each phase is divided into 2 scales, 1.1, 1.2, 2.1, 2.2, 3.1, and 3.2, and then the competence is given here. In each one of them, in each of the scales, teachers are given a descriptor telling you this is what you are supposed to have. This is the knowledge that you are supposed to have to be in this rank. Okay?
Can you share it with us?
I will.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, if you go to this website, I think this will help you. If you go to this website, it's egrid.epay-project.eu. This website, it reflects like this. You can see 3 tabs here. You can, if you are a teacher, you can click here. If you are a trainer, you can click here. And if you are a manager, you can click here. Once you step here and you go into the teacher branch, it will give you questions. You answer the questions one by one, and by the end of the questionnaire, it will tell you that you are here in each of these competences, and 5 minutes. There is an alarm. Okay, so it tells you where you are and what step you need to take next. This is also another example. This is Cambridge English Teaching Framework. But the description here, or the descriptors, or the division of teachers has been divided into different way: foundation, developing, proficient, and an expert teacher. Here you can find the competence, and again here we have a descriptor of where you are and where you need to be when you work on this specific skill. Okay, so as teachers, we believe that we may lack something. We may lead the horse to water, but you cannot force it to learn. You know, we were talking now about motivation, right? If teachers do not have the motivation to improve their own skills, they will go nowhere. As a teacher, you need to see where you are now and what's the next step. I'm here in this particular skill, and next year I'm going to be at that place. Okay, so whatever the institution is providing, you know, professional development, training, webinars, seminars, whatever, symposiums, you might go, you might attend, lock your ears, enjoy the meals, and relax. Okay? If you do not really have the motivation to work on something, you're not going to develop in the next year. Any questions?
Thank you.
You're done?
I am. Before the 5 minutes. Thank you very much. For more information, if you need the slides, you can send me an email to us. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Shawky. That was very insightful, and I'm sure we have so many ideas to take away from your presentation. Thank you so much.